Meanwhile, on the Windows side of things, on June 9th, Microsoft released the largest Patch Tuesday update in the entire program's 23-year history.
Every year, hundreds of millions of PCs quietly download the same thing without anyone asking a single question: the next Windows update. It's the most unremarkable ritual in modern computing. So routine, it barely registers as a decision anymore. For 3 decades, no PC maker on Earth has seriously considered saying no. Windows wasn't just the software running on the machine, it was the reason the machine existed at all. Then, according to reports out of Beijing, the single largest PC manufacturer on the planet quietly informed Microsoft it would not be shipping the 2026 Windows update on its newest China market lineup at all. What happens when the company selling more computers than anyone else on Earth decides it doesn't need the software everyone assumed came standard?
Everyone is turning on Microsoft. The power users are sick of the cavalcade of bugs that won't end. Ridiculous stuff like being booted off Terminal because you're not signed in on your Microsoft account.
To understand why this matters, you have to understand exactly how much weight one company can throw around in the PC industry. Lenovo has been the world's largest PC vendor every single year since 2013, shipping more than 70 million machines in 2025 alone, and holding roughly a quarter of the entire global market, ahead of HP, Dell, Apple, and every other brand combined into a distant second and third place. Lenovo didn't get there by accident. The company built its global reach by acquiring IBM's ThinkPad division back in 2004, spent the following 2 decades expanding into Japan, Germany, and dozens of other markets through joint ventures and acquisitions, and became so central to the Windows ecosystem that Microsoft has, for years, treated Lenovo's shipment numbers as a bellwether for the health of the entire PC industry. That relationship has never been adversarial. It's been the opposite. Lenovo pre-installing Windows on the majority of its machines has been one of Microsoft's largest and steadiest sources of licensing revenue for over 2 decades, a partnership so deeply embedded in both companies' business models that neither side has ever had much public reason to talk about it directly. It just worked, quietly, the way infrastructure is supposed to work. According to reports, that quiet arrangement started cracking earlier this year. Sources describe Lenovo notifying Microsoft in private meetings that its newest ThinkPad, Legion, and Yoga lines sold within mainland China would not be receiving Windows 2026 annual feature update, the major yearly release Microsoft has used for years to bundle in new AI features, security architecture changes, and interface updates across its entire installed base. Instead, according to the same reports, those machines are being reconfigured to ship with a domestically developed operating system built on a Linux and Ubuntu-based foundation, complete with a compatibility layer designed to run existing Windows software without requiring users to abandon the programs they already depend on. Would the world's biggest PC maker really walk away from 3 decades of default Windows pre-installation? Or is this the kind of leverage move companies make when they want a better deal, not a real breakup?
Windows, the untouchable, unpenetrable fortress, and it's owned by Microsoft. Wait, I can't say that, I'm gonna get censored. No matter how beaten down and abused we are by them.
That's a fair question, and reports on Microsoft's internal reaction suggest the company isn't fully certain of the answer either, which is part of why the response has reportedly been so heated. Sources describe Microsoft executives as blindsided by the scale of the announcement, given that Lenovo alone represents roughly a quarter of all new PCs shipped worldwide, a volume large enough that even a partial shift away from Windows licensing in a single market could meaningfully dent one of Microsoft's steadiest revenue lines. A Microsoft spokesperson is reported to have issued a statement calling the move disappointing and inconsistent with decades of partnership, while declining to confirm whether the company was reviewing other elements its commercial relationship with Lenovo as a result. Reports describe the reaction inside Microsoft going well beyond a single statement. Sources familiar with internal discussions say executives raised concerns in meetings about what the move could signal to other major OEMs watching from the sidelines, particularly given how much quieter groundwork has reportedly already been laid elsewhere in China's PC and phone industry over the past year. Some accounts describe frustration serious enough that the company's Windows and Devices division reportedly requested an expedited review of Lenovo's existing licensing agreements, though nothing about that review has been made public, and Microsoft has not confirmed it took place. What would it actually take for Microsoft to walk back 30 years of assuming Windows came pre-installed on every major PC brand without a fight? None of this is happening without deeper context. This is the same broader shift that's been building in China's technology sector for the past year, following reports of a domestically developed operating system working under the name Kylin Fusion, unveiled by a state-backed consortium earlier this year, with a stated goal of running Windows software natively while eliminating licensing costs entirely. According to those earlier reports, the rollout plan targeted government agencies and public schools first, with a goal of reaching more than 200 million devices within 3 years through subsidies offered to domestic hardware manufacturers willing to pre-install it. Lenovo's reported decision to skip the 2026 Windows update on its China lineup would mark the first time a major global PC brand, rather than a government office or school system, has folded that operating system into its own consumer and business product line. That distinction matters enormously, because government adoption and consumer adoption solve two completely different problems. A government agency can mandate its own employees use a new operating system regardless of whether the public finds it appealing. A PC maker selling machines to ordinary consumers and businesses has to convince millions of individual buyers the Switch won't cost them compatibility, support, or convenience. If Lenovo is willing to bet its own brand and warranty support on that compatibility layer working reliably at consumer scale, reports suggest it represents a level of confidence in the underlying technology that government pilot programs alone never fully demonstrated. Would you trust a laptop from the brand you already own, running an operating system you've never heard of, over paying for the version of Windows you already know? The timing also lands in an unusually sensitive window for Microsoft. The retirement of official support for Windows 10 drove a major wave of PC replacements through 2025, as businesses and consumers who had held on to older machines were finally forced to upgrade, a refresh cycle analysts widely credit for propping up global PC shipment growth that year. Heading into 2026, that replacement wave has largely run its course, leaving PC makers competing harder than usual for a shrinking pool of buyers, just as component costs have climbed. A Windows optional lineup arriving at exactly the moment Lenovo needs a fresh reason for customers to buy new machines isn't necessarily a coincidence. According to analysts cited in the reporting, so much as a company reading its own sales data and looking for any lever left to pull. The financial stakes on both sides of the story are enormous. According to industry analysts cited in the reporting, Windows and related device revenue remains one of Microsoft's largest single business segments, and losing even a meaningful slice of licensing fees from the world's largest PC vendor in the world's largest PC market would represent a real and measurable hit rather than a symbolic one. At the same time, reports note that Lenovo's own China business has faced pressure from slowing domestic PC demand and rising component costs throughout 2026, giving the company a clear financial incentive to eliminate licensing fees on machines already squeezed by thinner margins. Neither side is making this move purely on principle. Both are reportedly responding to the same underlying economics. One company trying to protect a revenue stream it has depended on for decades, and another trying to protect margins on a product category that's gotten considerably harder to sell profitably.
Lenovo is starting to ship some laptops with SSDs from Chinese company Yangtze Memory Technologies Co.
There's also a geopolitical layer analysts have been quick to point out. Reports describe Chinese regulators as having quietly encouraged domestic hardware manufacturers throughout the year to reduce dependency on foreign software wherever technically feasible, part of a broader push toward technological self-sufficiency that's been building since long before this specific story broke. Lenovo, as a company headquartered in Beijing with deep ties to both the Chinese government and the global PC market, sits in an unusually exposed position. Any move it makes on this front carries weight far beyond its own balance sheet, serving as a signal to every other Chinese manufacturer still weighing the same decision. Other major Chinese brands are reportedly watching closely rather than moving immediately. Sources describe Huawei, Xiaomi, and Honor as monitoring how Lenovo's rollout performs over the coming months before committing their own PC lines to a similar shift, wary of the reputational risk if compatibility issues emerge at scale on flagship products. That caution is worth taking seriously. A single high-profile compatibility failure, a widely used piece of business software refusing to run properly, or a security vulnerability in the new operating system's early months could set the entire pushback years and hand Microsoft exactly the kind of cautionary story it needs to keep other manufacturers in line. What happens to the rest of China's PC industry if Lenovo's bet actually pays off cleanly, with no major compatibility failures in year one? History offers a genuine reason for caution here, and it's worth naming directly. Munich's city government famously spent over a decade migrating thousands of desktops away from Windows to a custom Linux distribution called LiMux, starting in 2004, only to reverse course and migrate back to Windows by 2017, citing compatibility headaches, fragmented support, and mounting frustration from employees used to a specific software ecosystem. That failure looms over every story like this one, and reports suggest Microsoft's own internal messaging has leaned on it more than once in conversations with nervous OEM partners this year. The difference skeptics point to is scale and motive. Munich was a single city government forcing a switch top-down onto employees who had no say in the matter, while Lenovo's move is a consumer-facing company betting its own brand reputation on a product people are choosing to buy. Whether that difference is enough to avoid Munich's fate is exactly the question nobody can answer yet. Consumer reaction inside China, according to reports, has been mixed rather than uniformly enthusiastic. Discussion on domestic tech forums reportedly splits between buyers excited about lower prices and reduced dependence on foreign software, and a more skeptical group worried about losing access to specific Windows-only tools they rely on for work, from specialized engineering software to certain games with strict anti-cheat systems that have historically been the hardest category for any compatibility layer to support cleanly. Lenovo has reportedly responded to that skepticism by offering the new operating system as the default on select 2026 lineup models rather than the only option, allowing buyers who need guaranteed Windows compatibility to select a traditional configuration at the point of purchase, a hedge that suggests even Lenovo isn't fully certain how quickly demand will shift. That uncertainty is precisely why this story is worth watching, rather than declaring settled in either direction. Reports describe Microsoft as unlikely to simply accept the loss of its largest OEM partner without a fight, whether that fight takes the shape of renegotiated licensing terms designed to make staying with Windows financially preferable again, accelerated feature development meant to widen the gap with any compatibility layer, or quiet diplomatic pressure applied well outside the public eye. Lenovo, for its part, has given no indication reports suggest of abandoning Windows entirely outside its China lineup, keeping the rest of its enormous global business firmly inside Microsoft's ecosystem for now. This isn't framed, even in the reporting, as the end of Windows. It's framed as the first time the world's most powerful default has had to actually compete for. So here's where this actually stands.
There's also BitLocker lockouts on enterprise hardware. Corporate devices are rebooting straight into the BitLocker recovery screen after installing the update. One administrator reported pushing the update to 300 machines overnight, and 42 failed to boot by morning.
The world's largest PC maker just told the world's largest software company that its 2026 update isn't automatically welcome anymore, at least not on every machine, not in every market. For 3 decades, that sentence would have sounded impossible. Now, it's reportedly sitting in a boardroom in Redmond, and nobody there seems fully sure yet how hard to push back. If the biggest customer Windows has ever had just showed everyone else it's allowed to say no, how many other quiet defaults are about to get questioned for the very first time? Next time, we're looking at what happens when China's phone makers make the exact same call. Subscribe so you don't miss it.